I don't know if you guys heard, but yesterday Mac Jones had quite the practice. Cam Newton had quite the Zoom session, I suppose, as he was on his 5th day of his mandatory 5-day away from the team period because as an unvaccinated player, he violated COVID protocols. So slap on the wrist and he has to miss some time. And it opened the door for one Mac Jones to potentially be the starting quarterback. Now, Cam did practice today. There were varying reports about who looked how during that practice, and we'll get those as they filter in throughout the afternoon. But here's the situation. I know it is very in vogue for especially, it seems like very popular amongst very successful, young-ish media personalities on Twitter to tell younger people the importance of, hey, take your vacation days. Self-care. Make sure you have a great work-life balance. And it all sounds really good. And then if you ask those highly successful professionals well into their career, what was the beginning of your career like? Oh, didn't take a vacation for 3 years. Worked nights, worked weekends, worked holidays. My opportunities were when the established, veterans, if you will, of my field were off. I mean, me personally, I was the weekend radio guy making $8 an hour in Kansas City, and I'll never forget it. 2 great guys, the old Neil and Marty, great guys, not the greatest radio show. They took an extended vacation. It's like, hey, who wants to broadcast for no listeners on the Kansas City's 2nd-rated sports AM radio station on Christmas Eve? I was like, I do. And, 9 months later, I had that job. And that's the story of a lot of young people. Get your foot in the door, be available, show up, and even if you're not necessarily better than the people whose job it is, you're younger, you're almost assuredly cheaper, you have a longer runway of your potential career with that company, and you all of a sudden get the gig. And while I don't agree with what Tom Curran wrote, which is the quarterback competition is over, Mac Jones has won it, Cam Newton should not take a single meaningful snap for the Patriots this year, I think that's overstating it. I don't think it's overstating it to say it is now a real question of who is going to be the week 1 starter, and Cam only has himself to blame for that door opening. Cam has chosen not to get vaccinated. Cam chose not to, what knowingly or unknowingly. It was a choice to violate the protocols, and he chose to let Mac Jones do his version of hosting that show on Christmas Eve. Hey, this kid's kind of good. And now, if you are Aaron Rodgers, or in this business, Colin Cowherd, you can take all the time off you want. Nobody's replacing you. But if you're Cam Newton, and you're on your 2nd team after the worst year of your career, which followed the previous year, which was up to that point, the worst year of your career, and there's injury questions, and now there's availability questions, and now you're competing with the first-round quarterback Bill Belichick's ever taken for a team that clearly wants to win immediately, all of a sudden, that job is very in jeopardy. And it's in jeopardy not only because Mac Jones played well the last few days of practice, but because you opened the door to Mac Jones getting all the reps. You opened the door when you didn't need to Mac Jones taking your job. And listen, I was a guy that said I wouldn't have spent a 1st-round pick on Mac Jones. I didn't see it when people were talking about him going 3rd overall. It made no sense to me. When I watched college football last year, he was roughly the 9th most impressive player on Alabama. I didn't get it. But Bill Belichick did. He saw something. That's why he drafted him. And if you don't think the Patriots, all things being equal, would prefer to go with the cheaper, younger player on a 5-year deal versus the older, slightly more expensive player on a 1-year deal, you're crazy. And so do I still think Cam is likely the week 1 starter? Yeah. If I give me even money on either side, I'd bet Cam. But do I think Cam is at this point likely the week 8 starter? I do not. And much like when you have a player who always has like a nagging hamstring injury, it's like, when he's out there, he's good. But is he going to be out there? We got to worry. Is that going to flare up? I call that the Sammy Watkins. Man, when he's out there, he's great, but seems to always have something. If you are an unvaccinated player in the NFL this year, no matter what anyone in the audience thinks of the COVID rules or the vaccines, or if you're a big horse dewormer person, whatever it is, this is not an opinion, this is a fact. You are far more likely, based on the NFL's rules, to not be available for your team if you are unvaccinated. And if there's one spot where availability matters more than any, it's the quarterback position. Mac Jones is vaccinated, Cam Newton is not, and that very well may have laid the groundwork for Mac Jones taking Cam Newton's job. Look at the NFC. The last 25 years, every single team, except for the Vikings, Washington, Lions, and Cowboys, have been in the Super Bowl. Every single team, except for Washington, the Lions, and the Cowboys, have been to at least, multiple conference championship games or further. The Dallas Cowboys, America's team, is stuck with two of the most dysfunctional franchises in all of sports, having not even been a game away from being a game away for a quarter century. Think about that. The Panthers have 4 medals, 2 Super Bowl losses, 2 conference championship losses, since the Cowboys have last been to a conference championship game. The Bears have been to a Super Bowl. The Bucks have peeled 2 wins. The Vikings, we consider them a sad sack franchise because of all the bad luck. They've been to the conference championship game 4 times. The Bears, who haven't had a quarterback since Sid Luckman, have been to more conference championship games and more Super Bowls than the Cowboys last quarter century. So, what is success for the Cowboys? That's not difficult. That's not a complicated question. Can you be a game away from being a game away? Let's put it this way. Can you be involved? Can Troy Aikman be involved in a conference championship game for the Cowboys without playing in it? Think of how long Joe and Troy have been broadcasting together for us on Fox. And they've never called a single Dallas Cowboys game where if they win it, they go to the Super Bowl. The furthest that Joe and Troy have gotten to see the Cowboys go is the divisional round. And they've been there twice with Dak. They were there with Romo, obviously. So it's a weird spot with the Cowboys where they're talked about more than anyone. We talk about their offense. They got 3 number 1 receivers, which they don't, but they do have 3 really good receivers. They got a top 3 paid quarterback. They have potentially this excellent running back, potentially this great offensive line. We say all these things, and then it's like, what's success? We'll win the division. Win the division? You're going up against Heineke or Fitzpatrick, Jalen Hurts, and Daniel Jones. Of course you're going to win the division. That's the bare minimum, assuming that guy's playing. How about win a couple playoff games for the first time since Troy Aikman was your quarterback? That really is, when you think about the teams that just get glossed over, I don't know if we can put it up one more time. When we go through the NFL, teams that are like the yada yadas, that have had far more success than the Cowboys, and not in a small sample size, but for a quarter century, it's just remarkable. You don't want to be on a list with Washington and the Lions, yet that's the list. Teams in the NFC that have not been a game away from the Super Bowl since I was in 6th grade. It's Washington's football team, the Detroit Lions, and America's football team, the Dallas Cowboys.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.